Welcome, everyone, to a Thursday edition of me and JR going to discuss some awesome endgame theories. Today, we're going to discuss the God's Eye, JR. I just dropped a recent video on that. There's some really great feedback we got from the Hype and Love community, the Game of Thrones Song of Ice and Fire community, and we decided that we should do a follow-up live stream since there were some great questions. And I think overall, even though the God's Eye is very important in the books, it hasn't yet really been that important in the show, but that doesn't mean it won't be in the future. So today we're going to talk about the God's Eye. We're going to talk a little bit about the most recent video I dropped, some of the things I had to say, and we're going to have a fun chat today.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've just been getting a lot of positive feedback and people are asking questions. I just posted a link in Geek Chat 1, said, hey, if anybody's got questions, we'll answer them live. And people have been responding on that too. So yeah, I mean, this has generated a lot of hype around it.
Yeah, and ever since we dropped the video, we've had 300 or 400 new subscribers, new people to the channel. Hopefully some of them will be live here in the chat today. Don't be shy if you've never commented in the live chat before. Welcome to these live streams. We are all for the most part super fun. Some of us are a little bit weirder than others, but you know, feel free to ask a question if you have a question, and if you have anything to say, an awesome comment or a thought on the God's Eye, a theory, some speculation, let us know in the chat. And but yeah, JR, where should we kind of start off? The God's Eye is important, right?
Oh, the God's Eye is inherently important. It has been important in the books, and this is one that we've kicked back and forth a couple of times on where does it really stem from? Where's it going? What is it? What's its purpose? And especially in the show, because it's been mentioned very loosely in the show. I mean, it's very much a book thing where it's much more pronounced of the God's Eye and where is it at? How's it going? What's going on there? And I think the only way the show can do it, and this is just my opinion, is if they incorporate Howland Reed into it. I mean, it's the only bridge that makes sense to get us into the God's Eye and have a background for it, because you get the payoff for the only living person that knows the truth of Jon's parentage. Then you get the ultimate truth about what the pact was in the olden days with the great other, and men, the realms of men.
So what's really interesting is that if we're going back to the books here, Howland Reed actually went to train at the Owl of the Faces. But what constituted that training? What was in that training? A training can be interpreted in many different ways. Was he learning how to use specific weapons to fight the White Walkers, and he is going to teach people how to use those? Or what kind of effect they might have? Is he learning about history, and is he the keeper of that history, some sort of like a protector of history, something like that? So Howland Reed,
the citadel of the
Order of the Green Men, yeah. So it's like, so that is kind of interesting, and also what's really interesting is Howland wasn't a green seer, but it was hinted at that the tree spoke to him. So Bloodraven, Brenda Rivers, perhaps the children of the forest were communicating with Howland because they knew he was an important cog when it came to the end game as far as the Owl of Faces. And I think that especially for me, a big reason why I decided to do this video, and Next from Game of Theories has done an excellent video on this as well. If you haven't went and checked out his video on the God's Eye, he was the one that sprung that Night King is Bran theory last year on YouTube. Huge, like 4 million views on that video. Absolutely fantastic. I don't personally believe in that, but he pointed out in the season 6 history and lores that when they spoke about the God's Eye in this history and lore, it was the exact same formation that we saw when the Night King was created near the mountain, shaped like an arrowhead. So that to me is really significant, because that means if they put it into history and lores, not everyone watches these, right? But if they did insert it and they called it the God's Eye, and there's that same exact spiral, there has to be a connection for me anyways. I think that is really important.
No, and I agree. And on the Howland Reed side of it, you know, given the physical stature of what we know of House Reed, given it's led to a lot of theories on the boards. I mean, this goes back to, you know, early 2000s that I first remember seeing some of these theories on the original boards. Like I've been on the board since I was in high school.
What you're talking
Westeros.org, yeah.
Yeah, Westeros.org.
Well, yeah, sorry, that's what I refer to as the boards. I mean, the old boards, and that's the first time that I remember seeing these theories. I mean, YouTube wasn't around then or anything else, but you know, we would discuss it, and that's the first time I remember going, you know, maybe there is a real connection between House Reed and the Green Men and the Children of the Forest and what he's doing on the Isle of Faces training and everything else, and it's kind of all culminated with the show and come back to this in a weird way.
So, I mean, one thing that is a little bit different from the books and the show is that there's plenty of symbolism in A Song of Ice and Fire. That cannot be disputed.
No, there's a reason it takes this long for George to write it. It is so deep that it's unreal.
But to have a visual representation of especially what the White Walkers did in the first episode, for example, they left a marker. They left a warning. They are making a demonstration. When Mance Rayder says always the artist, he's using the term artist was so interesting to me because an artist is someone that creates art or showcases art or demonstrates.
It's a creator, yeah,
a creator. So always the artist, what they're doing is they're leaving these symbols in reference to their creators. And that connects to what David Benioff said in the season 7, episode 4, when he's talking about the Dragon Glass cave scene. And he's talking about how these symbols were not created by the White Walkers, but they were created by the Children of the Forest, and they have meaning in their culture.
The creator's creator. It would be much like the cross is to a Christian or the Star of David is to a Jew. I mean, these are the symbols of the creator. I mean, that's really what we're talking about.
Now in the Dragon Glass cave scene, there's so many different symbols, right? I mean, there is the symbol of Phi. You know, some people interpret that as a symbol of Theta because Sansa wears the necklace with the line crossed through it. Now, that could absolutely be the symbol of Theta, but some people believe it's the symbol of Phi because if you look at the first episode, and Adam Richards has a great paper on this. Go check. I'll make sure we post his link to his paper in the description of the video after. But he points out that it's a circle with a line through it, and then there's it's like an upside down cross, which is the symbol of Phi, which was used going all the way back to ancient Grecian history and Egyptology as well. So that's something that is really interesting because some people like David Benioff was like, he was kind of coy about it. He's like, yeah, I don't really know what they mean, but if they were inserted into the show and the set people who are helping make the sets and orchestrate these scenes, and then David Benioff and Dan Weiss are part of this process as well. They have to know why and why they're doing this and what these symbols mean. For me personally,
yeah, I mean, symbols are inherently important. And when you were starting to speculate on this, and we were talking back and forth on it, like we were talking about alchemy symbols and symbolism of alchemy. We were talking about religious symbols from all around the world. It was uncanny. And you were like, okay, I think this is onto something. Then you jump back and go, no, I don't think that's quite right. I think maybe it might be over here. And the fact of the matter is George is absolutely a master of manipulating many different parts of history and pulling it into one and creating his own narrative out of that. And that's what he's done. And so the right answer is the right answer over here, might be the right answer over here, might be the right answer over here, because it's all a piece of it. It's part and parcel.
Yeah. But in the very first scene of Game of Thrones, Waymar, Roy, Scared, and Will go beyond the wall, and they find the arrangement of the wildlings' body parts in their heads, and it's really I think is there 6? I think there's actually 6 heads in total, and some of them are facing, looking at the symbol inwardly because they're outside of the symbol. So that can perhaps, and I mean, what we have faces in trees that could perhaps be interpreted as the Isle of the Faces, right? And the and Talamasca Dan has an interesting point in chat. Could the line through the circle be a representation of a broken pact? Did the what the White Walkers have a pact? Is there a more ancient pact with the White Walkers?
Well, we know they can be negotiated with. We know they can be negotiated with. Otherwise, Craster would have no keep and no sister, wife, whatever they are.
And in the show, at least, we know that there's only male White Walkers and female children of the forest. So, it seems like the White Walkers are not able to procreate. I mean, if they're not able to speak and they're not able to procreate, I mean, it seems like the elemental dragon glasses in the Night King's chest is precluding him from being able to have children and speak. It's dehumanizing him, essentially, right?
Correct, which is something that you often do with enemies to begin with. You always dehumanize them in some regard.
Let's do some shout outs in the chat. We're gonna continue to go more deeply into this. This is one of my favorite subjects. We're gonna talk about some of course, the final points that I made in the video, which are pretty juicy. But we're gonna do some shout outs in the chat. We got an amazing chat here today. 86 people so far, and we got 32 likes. If you're enjoying this, please feel free to like this video. We have the Weirwood Princess. Love the name. Are you a new Weirwood Princess, or are you someone that's remade your name? Welcome. Talamasca Dan, welcome back. It's been a while, my friend. Thank you for coming to join us today. Scott McCloy, what's going on, my friend? Paige Roberts, the prince that wasn't promised. Nyanor Mandolin. We have Pandora Stargarian. We have Michael Smith. Maura Lee, by the way, was very generously before the stream. She messaged me on Facebook and she sent a little Christmas present. She sent a donation, a nice big juicy one. She sent a $60 donation, a nice Christmas present. So thank you very much, Maura Lee. Really appreciate that. Nicola, we have Mackenzie Burns, Lady Dreamfire, Halcyon Bombadil was one of the people I kind of spoke to when I was, because it took me quite a few days to write this script before I made the presentation, and Galen is an absolute expert on the Song of Ice and Fire books. So I, having to chat with him and in saying, I don't think you're right there, because I'm more of a book person, but the points you're making about the show, like, hey, that might work for that. It's always good to have another perspective and an opinion on the things you're going to be discussing in the videos. Thanks, Galen, Helen, and I'm sure there's more people. Andy Burnett, Three-Eyed Raven, Karen Richmond. What's going on? Nice to see you. It's been a while, and there's a bunch more of you in chat.
Yeah, Michael Smith and Anime Lover Nicole. Yeah,
I think the Knight Who Smoked the Laughing Tree and Michael Smith are both from Australia, so I think it's the morning for them. Thank you. Thank you for
Richard's in too. Richard Hobson.
Rick Hoppy,
yep.
who I got to stay with in California. What's going on, Rick?
Mama Ogre.
Where's Chrissy? Good question. Where is
Chrissy?
Yeah.
Where is my modern crime?
Where is my chat wife?
Right. We shall see if we can all summon her.
Daisy Kowalczykowski, Sword in the Darkness.
Dexter's mom.
But yeah, I think we're gonna return to doing these Thursday live streams, and I think it would be fun, like, because I feel like actually, you know what? I'm gonna screen share. Should I screen share what I'm dropping next?
Yeah, might as well, since it fired up before the chat or before we went live.
Actually, I'm just gonna drop the first 5 letters of what I'm gonna be dropping this weekend. There we go. That's the next theory video. We're expanding on Ragna. But back to and by the way, everyone, if you are enjoying JR being on the chat here with me, he is very handsome. You can go reach out to him on Geek Chat 1. Link is in the description of this video. And for any of you that do want to check out my thoughts on the God's Eye video that I just dropped, that's in the description of this video as well. Let's get back to Oh, and then next week, by the way, everyone, me and Helen are dropping a Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones comparative analysis of video. That's gonna be absolute gasoline. Helen's gonna help me. She's an expert on Lord of the Rings. But back to the God's Eye. Where were we, Jr.? We were talking about how important these symbols are, right?
Right. Yeah, we were on the symbols, and we ended up going through all sorts of different ancient histories and texts looking for symbols and symbolism that we could draw in and see if we could make a comparative analysis to what has been presented in A Song of Ice and Fire or in Game of Thrones in the show. And there's a fair amount there. I mean, it's pretty hot. It's pretty hype.
James Martinelli, first time in the chat. Love your work. Everybody, let's welcome James in the chat. Let's do some hype and love. You know what emojis is, spam. We got a donation from Katrin, Swedish Kronins, 50. Thank you very much, milady. So yeah, the one thing that I specifically I think I talk about the most in the video is the reference to the spiral symbol.
The seven spiral.
And the 7-arm spiral, which is quite interesting, JR. And we're going to talk about something that I actually didn't reference in the video. I wanted to save some things for the live stream. The 7-arm spiral, which is actually, if you put the House Targaryen sigil right over it, it's like almost an exact match.
It matches to House Targaryen. It does.
Right. And
we talked about it.
What's really interesting about the spiral that the Night King leaves and the spiral that we see around the big heart tree beyond the wall and what may be at the God's Eye is, if you look at House Targaryen sigil, there's actually seven arms. If you count the 3 heads that are trying to eat its own tail, the tail is split in 2 and then 2 wings. So I don't know if that's actually a reference or if it's just a coincidence, but I think that is also interesting if we take a look at the House Targaryen symbol. And George likes to use numerology and repetition throughout the story. We get 3s. Of course, the Azor Ahai theory, we have 3. We have the 3 acts of the hero's journey. We have the faith of the 7.
And you mentioned earlier with the original symbol that they left in the prologue or the opening scene of Game of Thrones, north of the wall. It's 6, but there's still a 7th there, which I always thought was funny because it's the one that's pushed against the tree that reanimates. So it's still 7.
So okay, let's take a look at the scene from Beyond the Wall. Actually, so we have how many children of the forest in that scene?
6 plus 1.
No. How many children?
Children of the forest. In which one? Which scene?
The scene where they make the Night King.
4.
There's 4 children of the forest. Okay.
Right.
Then there is Bran and the 3-eyed raven, who are in the weirwood.
Right, watching.
And then the Night King is on the weirwood tree.
Correct.
So that's 7.
It is. So
that's also pretty interesting. What the symbol that the Night King leaves, there's 6 heads. So that's pretty interesting. 6 heads, which can represent Bran, the 3-eyed raven, and the 4 children of the forest watching the Night King being made into a
right through the time loop. Yeah.
So perhaps that is in reference. He's like, I'm leaving this symbol. This is a hint that this is why I'm beyond the wall. You guys made the wall, but you guys trapped me in this body. This is in reference to you guys making me.
You did it to me.
I'm killing you guys. Like, I'm coming for you guys. It's a demonstration. He's like, I'm sick of this. I'm gonna end being in this form. And that's something that we're gonna get to more towards the end of the stream is why is he finally making the move?
Why now? Yeah, why now?
So let's take a look at some of the comments in the chat. Talamasca Dan says, I think the spiral is a symbol for the winter, the long night. And I always thought the Night King represents a natural cycle. Yeah, that's really interesting. One thing that I also did mention in the video, JR, is that kind of looks like the brooch that he wears. And
no, you did mention it. You mentioned it in the video.
No, that's what I'm saying. But that symbol that he leaves in the first episode does look kind of like the brooch, because you have the circle, and then you have the arrow, and then you have what looks to be like it's some sort of, I think it's a castle, personally. I don't know. I could be wrong, but it could be if you look. It's not 3D, but it could look like a crow screaming, or like
or a
but,
crow's skull, which goes back to
or a crow's skull. Yeah, but it's not. It's like open, but you like we don't see it 3D because it's flat. So if you look at it like that, but if you look at it, it could be like a crow's skull, but also it could represent the moon, and then like an arrow, like pointing down, and like the moon descending over the tower, kind of like the long night. So that simply could be like I am the long night, like I am the bringer of the long night. Like
right, I am.
Like the power of moon, nature, the moon over the world. Yeah,
it's a declaration and a pronouncement of coming. A harbinger, if you want, or harbinger. So Attila had a great question.
Yeah, let's talk.
If we do, and this one came off of the Geek Chat one, if we do end up at the God's Eye, which characters will be present, and what role do each one of them have to play?
Well, what's really interesting is we talked about this in the video as well, JR.
We did. Well, you did. I didn't.
Who goes beyond the wall? When we have that shot, when they go beyond the wall, it's Jon Snow, Jorah, Gendry, Tormund, Sandor Clegane, Thoros, and Beric. That's 7.
Yep.
Now, there isn't 7 when they get trapped in the middle of the lake, right?
No.
But if you have that overhead shot, that kind of looks like an eye. You have all the army of the dead, you have the rock in the middle, and then you have the people on the rock.
The rock.
Which I think
sanctuary at the moment.
Yeah, the sanctuary, and they aren't sure if they're able to pass, because we later find out that they're he taps his sword to find out if it's frozen. Water being an issue. We can talk about a little bit about what we think about that after too, but I think that is direct foreshadowing that that's actually going to happen again, because we have
the God's Eye specifically.
Yeah, because we have the frozen version beyond the north, and then we have. I mean, I'm sure it will become frozen if the Night King goes there, because he brings winter. But I mean, I think that we're going to have a second version of that where there's more life. I mean, the Isle of Faces is full of weirwood trees. I mean, they're said to be hundreds, right? So that is like the literal nervous system for the weirwood trees in West. Literally the heart of Westeros for the weirwood trees.
It is, and that's one of the few places down in the south that they still exist. I mean, so the God's Eye is basically, for those who don't know, it's right next to Harrenhal. So it sits basically at the center of Westeros, geographical center. When you pull in everything coming into it, that's about the geographical center of Westeros, and that's where the God's Eye actually is.
We're gonna talk about Bran in a second here. There's someone's
there's a bunch of Bran stuff that needs to.
So Julia Ed says only 7 escaped the lake, including Dany. So Jon Snow left behind, and he fell through the ice, right?
Correct.
So there was Dany. So and Gendry left, and Thoros died. So there's was there 7? Oh, did that count Dany's 2 dragons? Because Viserion died. So there's Drogon, Rhaegal, Dany, Tormund. Is that so? Let's go. So Dany and her 2 dragons, right?
That counts for 3 or no?
That counts for 3. Then we have Jon. Jon stayed behind, so we don't have him. So we have Beric, Sandor, Tormund, and Jorah.
Yeah,
that's 7.
Still
that's
7.
Crazy. That's crazy, right?
Like, still 7.
So
no, when we were talking about this before you published all your findings and everything, or made the video, whatever you want to call it. Sorry, I come from an academic background, so yeah. So when you publish your findings, anyway. So when we were going back and forth on this before you went with it, I mean, that was something that we talked about, is the reoccurrence of 7 was repeated. And I mean, to a volume that's almost nauseating when you actually look at it.
Actually, before we eat, like we had, like, me and JR were chatting. I'm like, okay, like, what are the main questions I want to ask in the video? Like, when I'm thinking about presenting something, I want to make sure that it's cohesive, so that when I'm explaining something or when I'm trying to get a point across, I don't want there to be,
just like every good book, it starts with a question.
Yeah, exactly. And originally we were talking about the 7 trumpets in the book of Revelations.
Mhm.
And we were like, okay, like the 7 seals. And like we were going like super deep. I had this whole section about 7, but it kind of really didn't fit in the video. So I took it out and I was like, well, yeah, it does kind of have relation to some of these other things.
And it did. It had a lot of correlation and relations too when we were talking about the 7 seals and 7 trumpets and I mean, it's basically it's the biblical version of the apocalypse. I mean, this is the book of Revelations. This is where it's all about. And so it was really interesting when we started breaking it down. I mean, God, it was probably what, midnight when we started chatting about it.
And we were up to like 3 in the morning.
Like 3 in the morning, talking about it back and forth. Both of us are researching while we're talking on the phone, on our phones. Well, I was on my phone. You were probably at your workstation. And I was sitting there looking stuff up. I'm like, okay, well, what about this? We go on reading, biblical scripture and like, oh man, that's kind of deep.
I definitely want to do a video in reference to the book of Revelation and the 7 seals because I don't want to spoil it, but we think we found like when each seal is broken and then and then each
the correlation through because George R. Martin is agnostic and claims agnostic, but he grew up Catholic.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is a question that I posed to you at like 2:30 in the morning. I'm like, wait, George grew up Catholic, didn't he? Like, no, he's agnostic. I'm like, no. I know he's agnostic now, but he grew up Catholic.
Yeah, no, he grew up Catholic. Yeah. But obviously, I mean, he's able to make his own discernment on what he believes. We're gonna reel it back in. We're gonna get. We have a question from Anime Lover. We're gonna get to Howland, Mira, and Howland after towards the end of the video. We're gonna get back to Bran here for a little bit. So one thing that we were discussing, I was like, okay, like, does Bran, because when Benjamin says, yeah, you got to fight in the show specifically, yeah, you got to fight the Night King, you got to take him on, you got to stop him. Is Bran gonna go for a final, like he's gonna have a final training at the God's Eye? Is that the place that Bran has to go to? And if I ask the question to you, JR, what do you think?
Okay, so I kind of go 2 different routes with it. Does he physically have to be there? And the answer is, I don't know. Can he tap into the Wirewood network and get there and talk to Howland? Does Howland have the ability to tap the network with all the green seers on the Isle? If he has to physically be there, which makes sense to me, I'm not poo-pooing it. It would make sense to me that he physically has to be there. Being the most powerful user of everything right now that the Children of the Forest still have in their arsenal.
So here's the thing. Let's ask this question. Is the Night King going to is he going to conquer the North? I think the simple answer is yes. For there to be a sense of urgency in the endgame, for it to feel like they might lose, which I think they have to, which I think has to happen for them to make some sort of comeback. I think that they're going to retreat to the God's Eye, and if Bran needs to be able to tap into the Weirwood network, like if he doesn't have access to the Heart Tree in Winterfell, like we might have some really cool visions of Bran. Like we may get it, we may not get that, but maybe if Bran doesn't tap into the history that of the old history of Winterfell and all of that, maybe we find out that the Night King is a Stark and he was there in Winterfell, you know what I mean? And that's a connection that we get. But maybe if that doesn't happen, I'm saying that would be kind of a great way.
Then the most powerful place for him to go is naturally the God's Eye.
Oh,
I mean, it's uncanny. I mean, he has to go there.
So, okay, let's talk about Bran for a little bit. Is Bran this is something that I talked about in the video, it's kind of tinfoily, but is Bran
did you make a hat?
I didn't make a hat, but I should have, right? Like little antennas and stuff. Is Bran the physical representation of Westeros? Check this out. He can't use his legs, so his legs are frozen. Bran's mind is ascendant, so he's illuminated.
Or
enlightened. Yeah, enlightened. Now, the rest of Bran, what's in his heart, though? Is his heart at the God's Eye? So, if we think about it, do weirwood trees grow in Dorne?
No.
They're certainly prevalent in the North, right? And
they won't even grow in the Eyrie. How many times did they try to plant God's wood in the Eyrie and it wouldn't take?
So
I mean, it's mentioned throughout history of Westeros.
So I don't know. I don't know if this is crazy tinfoil, but Bran being the physical representation of Westeros, and I think that we're going to get to the big aha moment in just a little bit. But
well, and the symbolism is though, because you present it in your video that is also where the Night's King is created. It wasn't actually north of the Wall. He was actually created on the God's Eye to start combating against the First Men.
Well, we'll see about that, right? Because we in the show we see the mountain shaped like an arrowhead. He's made there, but I think you're mixing that up, JR. Sorry, I said that there is the same spiral at the God's Eye.
Right. Okay. So it's a mirroring. Okay. Got it. No, I'm tracking now. Okay.
There's a mirror of the two symbols. Like there's going to be another spiral at the God's Eye. What's really interesting is, let's say Bran does make it to the God's Eye, and he is like the physical representation of Westeros. Wouldn't Westeros have to die to be reborn?
Yes.
So if Bran is, like I don't know. Is Bran Nisa? And this is something that I talked about.
And I love that part of it because there's so much dialogue just in the show. I mean, there's a bunch of contextual evidence in the books for it, but just in the show, the way they reference certain things, I mean, God, it's almost right there.
So let's get into the crazy stuff right now. We'll go back more into the symbolism. So kind of the conclusion that I came to at the end of my video was that these symbols are important, but the God's Eye has to go to the Owl of the Faces because it's the symbol of his creation. So he's trying to do one of two things. One, he's trying to get there so he can take because he's able to do. I mean, he basically expels Bran when Bran is in the Ravens beyond the Wall. Like he has green seer like abilities, right?
Yes, he does.
So we don't know if he's a former three-eyed Raven or if he's a Stark. But the possibility of that is pretty high, I think. So Bran has to get to the God's Eye because if we think of the term God's Eye, it would a god would hold knowledge that we don't necessarily have or understand, right? So Bran has to get there to get to this knowledge. The Night King also wants to get there to either go back in time to reverse his state, or he's gonna die trying. Because if any, like, let's put ourselves into his shoes for a second. Would you, JR, I'm asking you this question, would you want to be in his state for like 8,000 years, 7,000 years, 5,000 years? Wouldn't you be pissed if that happened to you, regardless if you were killing children?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, right, wrong, or indifferent. Yeah, no, anybody that would get locked into that terminally, basically, I mean, 8,000 years, come on. Nobody wants to be stuck in a perpetuated state. Like, think about it from his perspective. Everything he loved and cared about is dead by generations over now.
Did he have a family? Did he have a family? Did he have children? We know he made a deal with Craster's. Like, that's something that's still important to him. We really don't know. I mean, I don't know, man. It's so interesting, right?
It is.
Now, okay, let's say he wants to go to the God's Eye to do one of these two things. He wants to enter the Weirwood net and like reverse everything that happened, which would be like, I don't really necessarily like these like time loop, like the Night King is trying to reverse time.
Yeah, no, and I don't think that's what's going to happen ultimately. I think he needs to tap the network.
But he has to do something like that. Like he has to have access to that. So
the metaphysical battle, which I mean, you talked about it in the video as well, and I actually completely agree with it because I remember the first time that I heard this theory was James of Thrones and LaDonna
from the Small Council.
Yeah, Small Council, and this was back when James was just doing videos with LaDonna himself, and he always referenced that the battle that has to happen between Bran and the Night's King is going to be in the minds. So there's going to be a physical representation as we would see it, a physical battle going on. But Bran's battle is going to be when he's tapped into the network and fighting the Night's King in that manner. And I completely agree with it.
So there was a great question that we're going to get to in a second that question how I got to this conclusion. Like, that doesn't make any sense how it works. So let's say there's a physical battle happening at the God's Eye, JR. The forces of ice and fire are battling there, like Daenerys, Jon, all of them. And then Bran's in the Weirwood Network, and he's searching for a way to weaken the Night King. The Night King is also going to enter there because Bran's in there. And the Night King grabbed Bran, right? So I think that one thing that we have to consider is that mark is corrupting Bran. And if he continues on, like, we see Bran become more cold, right? Because he says he understands everything, he sees everything.
Yeah, robot Bran.
But I also think that the fact that the Night King touched him is, if you've seen Harry Potter, I don't want to use this as a reference, but it kind of works. Harry Potter and Voldemort are like, Harry Potter is essentially a Horcrux. You know what I mean?
Yes.
He Voldemort has to kill Harry so he can essentially live eternally. You know what I mean?
Correct.
But this is a little bit different. So I think that what's going to happen is that the Night King is trying to get to the God's Eye.
Whatever his endgame is.
Whatever his endgame is, whether it's information, like trying to reverse everything that happened, like trying to reverse
the pact that was initially set with the realms of men.
Like trying to uncurse himself, I guess would be the term.
Right. I mean, whatever his motivation is, because we really don't know. I mean, there's a lot of speculation on what it is, but the fact of the matter is we have absolutely no idea what his personal motivation or goal is.
So check this out. I think that Bran is going to have to sacrifice himself. The only way for, I think, us to feel like this would be bittersweet and like for it to have urgency is if someone like huge has to die, right? Kill the boy. And we talked about this, JR.
We did.
What if the only way to defeat the Night King is if Bran grabs the Night King like the Night King grabbed Bran in a vision, and
to lock him into the headspace, to lock him into the mental battle that they're going to be going back and forth, but also have a physical hold of him.
So physical hold, because the Night King is if we're talking food chain, he killed the dragon. Okay, we're not saying this is going to happen
with an Olympic javelin.
Insane, right? So let's say this happens. The Night King is getting in, and the Bran has to stop him from whatever he's doing, right? Has to stop him from connecting with whatever he's doing, and then he realizes that he's like, so many things are happening. He grabs the Night King, and that gives an opportunity for someone like Jon or Arya to strike a blow. But what if, the Night King has Green Seer-like abilities too, so
correct. He's at least a warg. We know that he's at least a warg at the bare minimum.
So I think that this all goes, I think that Arya has to kill Bran with the dagger that Bran gave Arya. And it goes back to the very first season of Game of Thrones. That dagger was destined to kill Bran Stark, just at a later time. It was just put off. And what's interesting is an assassin tried to kill Bran, and Arya basically trained with the League of Assassins. Think of her kind of like as Batman. You know what I mean?
She's now an analog for the original cutthroat that was sent to kill Bran.
And, Bran, becoming powerful enough to hold the Night King, and because I think that, why are, the Three-Eyed Raven talked about the consequences of going into a human body. It's talked of as an abomination in the books, right? It's not a good thing. But entering Hodor is this example of perhaps Bran being
able to do it.
Yeah. And I think that what's going to have to happen is that some people are asking why does Bran have to die in this scenario? Bran and the Night King are connected. So Jon would stab the Night King in the back with a Valyrian blade through the heart or something like that. And then Arya would stab Bran with dragon steel. Basically, because if the Bran and the Night King are essentially going to be one in the moment. So Bran would be the Night King and the Night King.
Yeah, they're going to be married, a married pair at that moment.
So we don't want the Night King to enter the consciousness of Bran, right?
No, he's going to be fighting off that while he is in the mind of the Night King, and that's going to be the metaphysical battle on that plane. But the physical battle will be killing both of them, because and so here's the breaking of the wheel. And we always go back to Dany with the breaking of the wheel. But if the wheel that's been set forth is the cyclical nature of ice and fire, ice and fire, ice and fire, as it keeps coming in and out, and if we're going to break that wheel, we have to break the mental and the physical of the Night's King in order to get rid of all of it, right? So to me, it's another, and I love the use of symbolism like that, where they use, it has multiple meanings. Like Aziz said, and you reference it in your video, the best symbols have multiple meanings.
Yeah.
And it totally makes sense that it's not just breaking of the wheel of the political nature of Westeros, but it's also breaking this threatening wheel from the north, from the great other, the cycle that it was created in antiquity and has been perpetuated throughout time. It's another wheel to break.
Vicky Hardy says, why do you think the Night King can work? The Night King is able to, he's a necromancer. And he's essentially
warging.
So let's think of skin changing as warging as being able to connect with an animal or enter someone else's mind with the living, right? That is entering another living being, connecting, like mind melding, right? But the Night King, he's not living or dead. He technically is in this like purgatory like state,
it's
right?
Suspended animation ish,
right? So that's why he's able to connect with that spectrum, right? Because he has the dragon glass in his chest, and he's able to revive the dead, essentially. Hey, we have Indie Geek
Robert
in the chat.
Yeah, Robert just jumped in. Hey, Robert.
So the people have been asking the question, why does Bran have to die? That's the reason why, because both the Night King and Bran represent the continuation of all of this, and
another wheel that needs to be broken.
Right, exactly. And then because essentially what it boils down to is when Leaf references the First War in the show, they were cutting down our sacred weirwood trees. We had to do this as an instinctive act of survival. Like they had to, they said they had no other option, essentially, because they didn't have like the bronze weaponry or the stature of men. Like they were like essentially they're just not powerful enough to take on the brute force of men, right? And essentially what this boils down to is the disconnection between the ancient values of men with nature, right? Because
these are the Bronze Age men. These are the first men of Westeros.
The circle of life, circle of life, and like, because essentially what they were trying to do is they were like were the first men. They were trying to acquire lands, and they were trying to push their agenda. Like they were coming over to acquire things, right?
And propagate their own species. That's what it was. And I mean, it's a war of attrition and a war of necessity of who needs what. And they came to a pact. They came to an agreement, even after the Night's King was created.
So with that said, it's really important to understand why that wheel needs to be broken.
You're going to sneeze. Is that what you were saying? You were just fixing to sneeze.
I thought I muted myself, but
no such luck today, buddy.
So a lot of people think it will end in another pact, but
I don't see it being a pact. I think the wheel's got to be broken, and that the sleight of hand with doing that is magic. I mean, it's great because we're assuming the political wheel of Westeros needs to be broken. And my theory that I think it's going to end in some kind of Magna Carta roundtable-ish, a representative government. It's not going to be a democracy because the powers that are in power now will still be in power, but it'll be a representation of their people, their populace that they're representing. It's not a democracy.
Well, what's really interesting,
a constitutional monarchy, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. We're going to talk about that in a second. I want to reference something that I actually got to hear George say in person. When we went to see him in Redwood City in California, he said that Bran was the hardest character to write because of magic. And he says, and he said these exact words: if you get magic wrong in your story, it can ruin it.
Oh, he's absolutely correct.
So I don't think we're going to see any time loop bullshit. Personally, I think that would just completely ruin what George is trying to evoke with Song of Ice and Fire, which is, I mean, he's trying to talk about climate change and the like the power, like the Iron Throne, the power that represents over man, this inequality that's going on. Also, the disconnectivity of man and nature. These different things. He's trying to make us realize these things, right?
Right.
And I talk about self-realization and the regressive state of man, the violent nature of man.
And
It
the
doesn't
futility of
doesn't
war.
align
And
with
I mean,
Westeros, like ancient Westeros.
yeah, there's so much stuff that goes into this. I mean, it's amazing to me. That's why I love this series. I love this book series just for stuff like that. And you can pick it out. I mean, it's all right there. You can see it, you can discern it, you can understand it. The reason we identify with the characters in this is because we see a piece of ourselves in it. I mean, that's what it makes it so relatable. It's so where are we at in our own journeys, right? I mean, that's what this entire series makes you question, no matter what, is where are we at in our own journey?
So some people are saying that maybe Bran doesn't have to die. And this was another conclusion I thought about including in the video, was that, Bran holds the Night King and Arya doesn't stab Bran, but he's in a Khal Drogo-like state. And then they have to mercy kill him, which would be even more bittersweet, right?
Oh, that'd be even worse. But I think it's going to be the transcendence with Bran. I think Bran becomes the Weirwood network. It's so, yes, it's tragic that his physical being, his physical entity has to die, but his soul is the entire history. It's a Song of Ice and Fire. It's the entire Weirwood network, right? I mean, he becomes Neo.
Well, what's interesting too, yeah, very good reference. What's interesting too is that this is so specific, but he says if you stay too long in the Weirwood network, you drown. He's talking about the mistake that he almost made, or that he made, right?
Correct.
Bran is completely different. So I think that
is, and that's why, okay, so this almost goes back to Star Wars, right? So if Qui-Gon Jinn would have lived, Anakin probably would have been okay, but Obi-Wan didn't know how to control what Anakin was going through.
Yeah.
And so he became what he was never supposed to be, right? An abomination, I guess, for lack of a better term. But it's the same kind of principle. You think about it, you're playing with it, that it's his mistakes is what created him, right? And so conversely, Three-Eyed Raven's mistakes is what created Bran to be better than his master, which is what Anakin always thought. He always thought he was better.
Which is like Harry Potter again, which is like Harry is destined to die. Like they're saving him for this specific moment for him to, like, he has to die because Voldemort has to die, right? It's like that same kind of idea, and that is so bittersweet, man. Like Bran, this boy who becomes paralyzed, his dreams taken away. That, but talking about going back to transcendence, I think, man, the final chapter, a lot of people think it's going to be from Bran's perspective. I don't necessarily think it will be. I think it will be someone in Winterfell, whether it's Samwell Tarly.
I think it's Sam. At this point, it's got to be Sam.
Maybe speaking of the Song of Ice and Fire, because he's Grand Maester, or Sansa, or something like that.
Morally, thank you very much.
Morally, thank you for another donation. You're so generous. Love you, milady. But I think it would be interesting if we have some ambiguity in the end, where like we have a raven and Jon's like cleaning his sword, or someone, Sansa, like Winterfell is being rebuilt. I think we're gonna get like something along the lines of that, and then we get the creepy, like eerie Three-Eyed Raven White Walker music, and they go, ah! And then we have a raven, and then we have the idea, is that Bran? Like something like that happening,
right? Yeah, call back to it. Yeah, no, I totally see that as being possible, and it's great representation. Why not do it?
So yeah, I mean, for me, I think that why did Bran give Arya that dagger? The obvious answer is like, yeah, I want you to fight the White Walker.
He's gonna kill a White Walker. Yeah, okay.
But what does he
aside from that?
But what does he say to Arya? It's wasted
on a cripple.
What the word wasted, JR,
has a couple of different meanings.
Used
as in used on.
Used on. I think Bran is telling Arya,
you're gonna have to.
You're gonna have to, and you know why? Jon and Arya are the two of the people who have had to make some of the most difficult choices in the Song of Ice and Fire. And I think that in that moment, with how far Arya has come in her journey, imagine her having to kill her own brother. And I spoke about this in the video too, like Jon, like and Jon having to kill the Night King, but still having to kill his brother because Bran is in the consciousness of the Night King. He would still have to kill his brother. Remember when Qhorin Halfhand told him that he had to kill him?
And now my watch has ended.
Imagine Bran having to tell them how crazy that would be, or like Samwell Tarly having to tell them or something like that. You have to kill, like something along those lines. That would be like super bittersweet, man, because Bran is technically his little brother. And the scene where Jon gives Arya needle, he says, stick him with the pointy end. And then he goes and sees Bran and he says, I've come to say goodbye to Bran. And Catelyn says, you already have? I don't know, man. Those two scenes, like back to back, maybe there's some foreshadowing there. Like we have some of our answers, like right in the first couple of episodes. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. LML's in the chat and loves your Burger King headset.
This?
Have it your hype way. He said it in the chat. It's hilarious. Hey, LML, what's going on?
Hey, it's got a little thing here. It's great. I can communicate. Oh, he said, love the God's Eye video, Kyle Lisi. Great take. Thank you. Yeah. Well, I'm definitely going to continue. We're going to continue to talk about this for a little. We got about like another 15 minutes before I have to go. I got to go clean the house. I'm going to make some dinner for my mom. She's been working really hard. So what are some other things that we wanted to talk about today, JR, when it comes to this God's Eye theory that we spoke of the other day?
Well, I'm pretty much guessing at this point that this is going to lead to another video no matter what, because you pretty much have to at this point, because there's so much other stuff that we've talked about, in the backside. That this is stuff that you guys don't see, is that we are constantly talking about this like pretty much every day.
It's all what I also kind of wanted to include in the video, but I didn't, was one conversation that I thought was really interesting from the show was the conversation that Jaime Lannister and Jon had when Jaime Lannister grabs Jon with his sword hand, by the way.
Yes.
Really interesting. And he says to Jon, because Jon is like using his, he's like, have you swung a sword yet? And the interesting thing is that Jaime Lannister puts his sword in the back of the Night King, and Jon's literally going to have to make the biggest sword swing in the history of the Seven Kingdoms when he fights the Night King. I think we're pretty much in agreement in chat that Jon is going to have to fight the Night King. Like, he's destined to do that. Like,
so you're saying Jaime lives all the way to the God's Eye? That's interesting.
I think that he's, yeah. I mean, man, is Cersei the last cog? They have to do the White Walkers and the Night King make it to King's Landing is my question. I don't know about that. Like, maybe Cersei is the last thing they have to remove. It would certainly be interesting if they made it to King's Landing, and they had to have some sort of plan where they like lure them in and they like set off wildfire or something like that, and Jaime sets it off. That's another video. So that's a whole other complicated.
I have another video for you to go on too, because it was brought to my attention by Mandolin actually. And it's one that I think you would have a heyday with. So you need to remind me of that. I need to tell you about that.
Mr. Skillen, Turtle Beach, appropriate equipment for germ talk, GRM talk. He loves
turtles.
Yeah. See?
Symbolism. It's all about the symbolism,
man. It's all about the symbolism. But I honestly, I think that Arya has to kill Bran. I mean, what he says to her, it was wasted on a cripple.
And I'm with you on that. I mean, we were talking at 2 a.m. about that, and I'm like, dude, think about the dialogue.
The Three-Eyed Raven also says something that's very interesting. I saw you post this a few times. I know you want us to talk about a Three-Eyed. I'm not ignoring you. Just I wanted to speak. I want to do a follow-up to the video. He says, Kyle, Jojen advised Bran his end will be in fire, as he said to him in the TV show, season 4, episode 5. His hand was on fire.
Yep.
He says, this is your end. So Bran end is in fire. Jojen was never wrong. Do you think that has some kind of correlation to what we're talking about?
I think it could be, and I think that could be from Dany. over the God's eye. And I can see it happening as Arya doing her duty, Jon doing her duty, and then you get the metaphor
Jon doing
of
his, sorry, I had his, yeah.
Doing his duty. I mean,
Yeah.
he constantly chose duty over love, over everything. And so Jon will do his duty just like Arya will, but they will back off of the fight at that one moment, right? And it's physically separate themselves enough for while they're in agony and twisting in their minds and their physical beings being stabbed, that Dany will come in and finish them off with Drogon blast to the face.
You know, what's really interesting, we're going to get back to Arya in a second. We're going to talk about duty is the death of love, love is the death of duty. It's going to burn the Weirwoods, burn them all. That would be certainly interesting. They have to burn the Weirwood network.
I don't think that'll happen.
I don't think that'll happen either, but that is certainly interesting. Another thing that I wanted to talk about was the interest that the Faceless Men have in Arya. I think it's certainly more curious if we bring up the point that Arya has to kill Bran. Wouldn't it be? Doesn't this make sense that the Faceless Men would think that the Night King is making a mockery of the gift of death? He's essentially raising the dead, and the Faceless Men are giving the gift of death, which is permanent,
and then seeing him reanimated.
Right.
So this is an abomination to their religion.
So, do they know something that have they seen the future when it comes to Arya and Bran? Like, is that why? Like, are they preparing?
I think that's why the Shave Pate wants to know. I think that's why the Faceless Men and specifically Jack and Hagar, or whatever his name actually is down at the Citadel.
Wouldn't that be kind of crazy that the Faceless Men have some sort of kind of their own endgame prophecy that they know about, and Arya is like,
well, is the Citadel another wheel that needs to be broken? Is that what the Faceless Men are actually after in what they're doing? Knowing that all these other things have to be broken, do they know that the system of education and the way that it's done and not to the people and only for those that are highborn, is that another wheel that has to be broken? It's a suppression of education, right? Coming down of society.
And what's really interesting is we know that Bravos was founded by the slaves from Valyria, from the slave mines.
Yep.
So
the first gift was given to a slave in the mines of Valyria.
So I think ultimately Arya is going to have to kill Bran, and Jon's going to simultaneously. They will have to do it, and there'll only be one opportunity to do it because I think that Bran is going to have to. I mean, this is in the show, people. Just book stuff. We have no fucking idea what's going to happen. Okay, but you know, Bran grabbing the Night King, it would make sense because in that moment, Bran's like super shocked. Wouldn't that be shocking to the Night King that he's like, "Why are you grabbing me?" But like, you know what I mean? He's become powerful enough that he's able to hold the Night King for just a moment. Like Jon would be like maybe he's fighting the Night King and the Night King has a sudden. Jon's not going to hesitate. Jon will not hesitate, right?
No, Jon will absolutely not hesitate.
Jon will definitely not hesitate to killing the Night King, 100%. But you know, I think that those are kind of some of the thoughts, some of the conclusions that I came to when researching these symbols.
And some of these questions that are coming up in chat, these are ones that are going to be addressed in another video, I'm sure, because Kyle's already bounced a couple of them off me on where to go with this kind of series as it started.
I'm going to do a second video talking about other possibilities, alternate possibilities. I know some of you, and by the way, thank you so much for the feedback. I think that's the hardest I've ever worked on a video, to say the least. I had the help from, a lot of people, like going back and forth, having discussions with people, talking about ideas and stuff like that. And, I think, I talked about the symbolism of Jon and Daenerys, that their story being the Song of Ice and Fire. I kind of, towards the end, one of the things that I wish I could have talked about more in the video was Daenerys and kind of where because I kind of like start weaning off a little bit.
And what do we get when we mix ice and fire? Because you wanted to touch on that point.
Water. So, and water represents life, right? Water represents life. So we got to talk about that in another video. And the new trailer, what's it trying to say? Some people are saying there's going to be a dragon glass wall, all that sort of stuff. But when ice and fire collide, there's water, and there's certainly some interesting symbolism to discuss there. I think in kind of talk about what happens when ice and fire collide. What does that mean at the end of the story? Well, a dream of spring,
is the thaw.
Yeah, so there's certainly some interesting things to kind of want to talk about the dream of spring. Why George changed the title of A Time for Wolves to A Dream for Spring, some of those kinds of things. But talking a little bit more about Dragonglass, some more of these symbols, and going more in depth about the God's Eye, because we know 100% in the books that the God's Eye is going to be super important. There's a higher possibility, and an anime lover had a question and donation earlier. I was saving this. How do you think we'll see Mira and Howland? I definitely think in the books that Howland is going to be important to the God's Eye. He may be like a new Hodor since told the door is canon, and that's going to happen in the books.
It will.
It will, because that's one of the three things that George told D&D that was
the big twists that need to happen.
The big things that are going to need to happen. So I think that, Howland and Mira in season 8, that's to be determined. One thing that is really interesting is we talked about numerology earlier in the video. Jon's parentage, his lineage being revealed. If we talk about threes, Bran was there in spirit form, right?
Correct.
So body, mind, and spirit, I'm going with here. And Jon is this messianic-like figure, you know what I mean? So Bran was there in spirit. Samwell is going to learn something from the Citadel, and then Howland Reed was there in person. So body, mind, and spirit. So that's something.
Ooh, I see where you're going with that. That's actually fair play. I like it. I can see where you're going with that. It's not too far of a stretch by any stretch. Yeah. I just said stretch like 3 times in a sentence, but okay, I'm over it.
But yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead, buddy.
No, that's pretty much what I wanted to say about the God's Eye. Like I said, a lot of you gave great feedback, and there's a lot of great questions that we still haven't answered. This is going to be a discussion that we're having. We're going to talk about this a few times, because I'm going to have to.
No, this is certainly not the last time. This one's going to keep coming up.
Because I feel like I made some. I feel like it. There's a definite possibility that Arya could kill Bran. In the books, we talked about this. I didn't include this in the video, but Arya getting Dark Sister. That is, instead of getting this dagger, I think it's.
I think the cat's paw dagger has kind of become a stand-in for Dark Sister in the show.
I think in the books, we could substitute Arya getting some Valyrian steel, but it being Dark Sister. I think that's.
I agree.
A higher possibility. Wow, we get 130 people watching. Really awesome.
Let's bonus time it then.
Let's bonus time it. Let's take some questions from the chat, since we kind of just went off and kind of discussed the video. And like I said, thank you for all the amazing feedback on the video, everyone. Most of it was overwhelmingly positive, and that's kind of the style of the video I'm going to be doing going forward. The next video is going to be a video in that style on Ragnarok. I'm going to do Ragnarok and Westeros. I'm going to talk about how A Dream of Spring and all the titles of all the A Song of Ice and Fire series, Game of Thrones, The Clash of Kings, actually are referenced in the Voluspa saga. A Wind Age, a Wolf Age, a Shield Age. George may have taken some influence from Norse mythology. So that is something that I'm going to talk about in the Ragnarok and Westeros series.
It's going to be great. I can't wait to start the Ragnarok again. Those were the first videos that I ever saw of yours, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. But just really quick before we shift gears into the bonus time, thank you to everybody who makes this possible, especially patrons. Thank you so much for supporting Kyle in all of his work and his endeavors, and bringing you content that we think you like and we hope you like and appreciate. Also tonight, Indie Geek, Robert is going to be going live at 6 p.m. Eastern time, 2 hours from now. And then tonight is also Lady Wolverine's book club. And I don't remember exactly what chapter they're on. They're in somewhere pretty deep though. I think it's the Jon chapter tonight.
They're on Game of Thrones. They're on the first book, right? Game of Thrones.
I think so. I think they're on Jon 7. of Game of Thrones. So check them out. It's a great book club of ladies that are absolutely hilarious. Well, not all ladies. I should not say that.
Okay, anime lover Nicole Azora Hype. She has a request. Since LML's in the chat, I'll ask him. Could you do a podcast or live cast with LML? I'd love to see you two together. LML, would you like to do a symbolism video with me? Do we want to do a collaboration theory video or something like that? Let me know. Anime lover, if you have a specific topic that you want us to talk about, we could talk about what we talked about today, and I can, we can, perhaps LML can give his thoughts, because he definitely has more book, probably a higher book understanding.
Let's do the thing. Let's do the thing. Oh, superhero knee drop. Oh, it's so hard on the knees.
All right, so I'll talk to David. And we'll get something going for you. Anime lover, we'll do it. I'm in. Also, yeah, I'll come on your channel. Absolutely. LML. I am super far behind on Fire and Blood, everyone. My goodness. One thing that that's kind of happened to me over the past week. I wasn't feeling good, went to the doctors, and I found out I'm actually celiac. So, yeah, so that's been kind of a struggle adjusting my diet. I've kind of had some it's like an allergy flu where you're like doing the elimination diet. I've been doing that, and then I found out that it was it's been a pain in the ass. So I'm starting to feel better. So more videos are coming. I had a few more lined up, but yeah, I'm starting to feel better with that, everyone. And but next week I'm going to be doing me and Helen are going to be collaborating and dropping a Lord of the Rings Game of Thrones Song of Ice and Fire comparative analysis. We're going to talk about the Iron Throne and the One True Ring. Really excited about that. There's
that's awesome. I can't wait for that one.
Definitely some parallels there, and I know a lot of you, because we do. And by the way, everyone, for everyone that is in the live chat right now, make sure you join Geek Chat 1. We do polls all the time, asking you guys what kind of content you would like to see on the channel, or what kind of discussions you would like to see. So if you join Geek Chat 1, you can find the link in the description of the video and kind of like participate. And not only that, not just the polls, but there's all sorts of discussion. We talk about Marvel, we post memes, like fun memes. We make fun of each other and like joke around with each other. There's all sorts of fun stuff. All sorts of fun stuff that we have going on in the Geek Chat community. So invitations open. And we have a pretty specific set of rules. Be kind. No real world politics. We don't do that. We only focus on like hype and love things there, right? So
yeah, that's pretty much about it.
But yeah, let's take a couple questions before we go. Let's take like 3 or 4 questions from the chat.
They'll come rolling in a second. Okay, we got Attila's.
Oh wait, what did Urtach just say?
What, Urtach got some? What?
Oh my god. Okay, I'm gonna make should I make the announcement, Urtach? I'm not gonna post it, but should I make the announcement? Let's ask Urtach if it is okay. We'll ask once Urtach. Okay. Urtach says don't. I won't do it. Something.
Okay.
Me and Urtach are collaborating. I'll just say that. You guys, it's badass.
Excellent.
Okay. Oh, he says go for it. All
what?
Right.
What?
All right.
Are we announcing it? You're going. Okay.
We're announcing it right now, everyone. Drum roll, JR. Can you do a drum roll, please? Urtach has drawn me as a white. The king.
I already assumed you were dead.
So Urtach, we're not going to show the art today because he's not finished, but he just sent me a snippet on Facebook and I'm looking at it, and it's insane. He drew me as a white for his new white series. He's done AU Pack Mule. I think he's done another content creator, I believe. But
yeah, he's done a couple actually.
But for me to be forever
embodied as an undead Kyle.
You're tearing me up, Urtach. Thank you.
That's fantastic.
Word. Okay. Let's we got some questions. Sword in the Darkness, off topic. Yeah, we can do some off topic questions.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it's open now.
If the first men used bronze and the anvils brought iron, why are the swords in the lap of Kings of Winterfell made of iron? JR, I'm gonna let you start off.
Ooh, That is actually a fantastic question, and it's actually been posed to George R.R. Martin before, and the answer is, huh?
That's kind of like shit, right?
Which is why we started a podcast of bronze and iron.
Yeah, we
We
gotta do another.
did.
We gotta do another.
We do.
Episode soon. We'll do one early next week. We've just had everybody's kind of had conflicting schedules.
Yeah, with family and the holidays, and yeah, no, I got a bunch of stuff going. Yeah, everybody's busy this time of year.
By the way, we got another announcement next week, Friday, here on the Azor Hype channel. We're gonna have a joy to the realm stream. We're gonna be doing a Christmas stream. I mean, it's gonna be. We're gonna be wearing our.
You mean the Yule? Are you talking about the Yule?
Ugly Christmas sweaters. We're gonna be doing. There's gonna be Game of Thrones inspired Christmas questions like, who would you think would be the Grinch? Who would you most likely like to go Christmas caroling with? All sorts of fun Christmas inspired A Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones stuff going on. It's gonna be next Friday. It's gonna be me, Gemma, Jara, and Helen. Maybe we'll have a few more guests as well, but there's at least gonna be the four of us, and it's gonna be a joy, a deck to the wall. It's gonna be called A Joy to the Realm stream.
Deck the wall.
But we're going to be doing that next Friday. It's going to be really fun. I think it's going to be like 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Right. I'm going to be like making like Christmas inspired snacks and stuff. Well, it's going to be real fun. It's going to be a Christmas inspired A Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones stream. All right, sorry. The holidays. We're going to celebrate
Festivus for the rest.
Festivus. Yeah. Okay, we got another question. Northvale Reach. Could Ned have forbade the wedding night bedding ceremony as Kat was already pregnant with Brandon's baby? I don't think so. No. Dare?
Look, I'm actually scrolling for questions right now too.
No. So Kat pregnant by Brandon? Do you think so? No, I don't.
No, I don't think. No, that would make Robb a bastard. In actuality, although Ned probably would have allowed it to pass anyway, and not said anything.
Let's not complicate things.
Yeah, that one's it's a great question though. I mean, it opens up a lot of possibilities. Great question.
Thank you for the question. Black Rob, I think the Night King will overrun Winterfell and he will be defeated at the God's Eye. What do you think of this prediction? Black Rob, yeah, I think, he's going to circle the Castle Black. Pardon me. Circle the Castle Black. Castle Black is donezo. Goodbye, Ed. Oh, that's going to suck. Last Hearth, Carhold, definitely getting destroyed. Winterfell is going to get overrun. I don't think the Night King is defeated at Winterfell. He's got to make it further than that.
He's got to.
And in the trailer, I don't know if this is foreshadowing or not, but it goes pretty far. It goes near the Trident, right? That's when Ice and Fire meet. And I think there has to be another battle with the Trident, right?
The Knight Who Smoked the Laughing Tree. What was Howland Reed doing at the God's Eye before the tourney of Harrenhal?
Good question. Was he training?
Was that the beginning of his training is really my question. Was that the start of it?
Yeah, it's so interesting that all of that happened, right? Because the Night of the Laughing Tree, many people think that is Lyanna Stark. And that's how Rhaegar found out that Lyanna was warrior-esque, and that's he was going to create the third head of the dragon and fulfill the Azor High prophecy, right? 3 heads of the dragon.
Right. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. Andy Burnett.
Yep.
Is Harrenhal cursed because it was built so close to the Isle of Faces?
I don't know if it's cursed because it's so closely built there, but bad things happen there. And when we think of terms of energy, like, a place that is haunted, when there's like a murder, there's negative energy that is left over there. You know what I mean?
Residual energy.
Yeah. Or like, I don't know how many people believe this, but energy never truly dies. You know what I mean? The idea that our spirit or something is left over. Negative energy is left over there, man. Lots of people died there. They were burned alive by a dragon inside that castle. So that's
a lot of people.
That's how I interpret it personally.
Residual bad energy means, melted rock and skulls.
Bad juju, as Daisy calls Sikowski.
Yeah, some bad juju.
Black Rob, do you think that Jon will kill Dany and bring forth Lightbringer? I used to think that was going to be a thing, but I think that the term Lightbringer is more metaphorical, and I actually discussed that's something that we didn't touch on in the video. Actually,
we didn't,
but I did bring up in my. I did talk about it, and I talk about Carl Jung talking about these self-realization, these regressive and progressive states that we go through in our lives, and I think that it's like, for me, Lightbringer is these epiphanic moments. If we think of having to forge your blade 3 times, the hero's journey, the 3 different acts, the 3 different acts of the hero's journey, the kind of things that you figure out on your journey, whether it's failure, whether it's success, it's 3 different things that you have to understand before you have your final light bulb moment that kind of pops up. And this is like, oh, this is my destiny, or this is the thing that I need to do. You know what I mean? I think that's what Lightbringer represents.
How many times has Jon forged a sword, metaphorically? Corn half-hand, a white.
Oh, dude, I mean, let's not. That's a whole nother video.
I mean, it really is. If you think about it, I'm like, ones that actually had other stuff going on in them where it shouldn't have happened, but it did. So, I mean, the 2 that he's done metaphorically and physically are corn half-hand.
Princeton wasn't promised. That's not appropriate.
Which?
That question, I'm not answering that. No, we're not talking about that, JR. Bad.
It's a fair question.
No, JR, do not. Some people are saying
every sword needs a sheath, Kyle.
Yeah, some people are saying
every sword needs a sheath.
A sword is a penis, and
and every wedding needs a
bedding. Yeah.
Okay, just checking.
Jon is already dead, so he will give his leftover self to preserve Dany's life. Yeah, I don't know. That's a whole that we. Oh, I
don't think he can pass that one. I don't. I think his is unique. Whereas now, and I am of the volition that Sandor will be resurrected by Beric, because Beric is expendable. He's not book important. I think Beric's expendable, show expendable, and I think Sandor will try to save Jon or Dany or somebody, and in the process get himself killed and be resurrected by I mean, come on, the Hound's wandering around the world with a bunch of fire worshippers, for crying out loud. I mean, it's great.
We're going to end on this point from Halcyon Bombadil Galen. I says, Lightbringer is about mythic sacrificial ritual in what Martin has exposed to us thus far. Yeah. I think Lightbringer does require a sacrifice. And I talk about this in the video as well. To be able to progress forward, for your old self to die, for you to transform, you have to sacrifice your old self. Your old self has to die, right? For you.
Yeah, it goes back to transcendence, which we've talked about. I mean, it's transcending one's personal predicament or physical or mental, wherever they're at. I mean, it's transcending.
Happy 420 for all of you Eastern Standard Time peeps. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Really, really fun discussion today. Great turnout. 130 people came, and so many amazing questions. A lot of awesome comments. Some generosity in the chat with Katrin, anime lover, and Maura Lee making donations today. Thank you for that. Yeah, kill the boy, Scotty. Yeah, that's exactly what it means. Great point. And
so, Kyle, what's up for you next then?
What's up for me next? Tomorrow night, we are going to be on Gemma's channel. We're going to talk about the genius of Littlefinger. So that's going to be at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's going to be going down another Citadel of Hype podcast. We're going to be going live at 7 p.m. tomorrow night. And I believe I should probably have the Ragnarok video done by Saturday or Sunday. Don't quote me exactly. It's going to be one of those days. But I'm revisiting the Ragnarok and Westeros series. My first video ever on Ragnarok was about 10 minutes long. This one is a little bit juicier than that. I think it's going to be double the amount of time. So it's going to be in the same kind of style. The video I just dropped from the God's Eye. So that's kind of how we're going forward with the channel, with the new content. Like I said, a lot of you really enjoyed it. We got like 500 likes on the video. So awesome. We have like almost 150 comments on that video. So I think that that's like one of the—
It seems to have resonated with a lot of people. A lot of people really enjoyed it. So yeah, keep going with that.
Yeah, so that's going to happen. And then next week, me and Helen are going to get together and we're going to do our One True Ring, Iron Throne. People have been saying Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire. There's a lot in common. I absolutely believe that because George R. R. Martin, one of the biggest influences for him in his writing was J.R.R. Tolkien. So that's what's happening next with the channel. Me and J.R. are going to work something out for our next Bronze and Iron podcast. And I believe Indeed Geek has he's going to join us for our next podcast of Bronze and Iron. So that's
excellent.
By the way, go check out Indeed Geek this evening.
At 6 Eastern is when he'll start, and then followed by 8 o'clock Eastern time is the Wolverine's Den book breakdown.
Yeah, Jennifer Wolverton, the Wolverine's Den, they're going to be doing their book club. And then, like I said,
and then let's see, what's Saturday we're recording Snapchats.
You and Helen are recording
most
yeah, no, that's me, you and Gemma. You and Gemma are going to be discussing. We're going to be discussing the Captain Marvel trailer and the most recent Avengers 4 trailer.
Correct. So we're talking about that, and then Helen and I will be recording the second episode of Most Isley Cantina Buzz.
Which is Star Wars talk.
All Star Wars, correct. So that's what's going on my end.
So a lot of stuff coming. We got 77 likes and 0 dislikes on the video. Woohoo! I think that's like a first. 111 people watching. Thank you so much for joining us. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to subscribe. If you want to see a Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones content, there's going to be a lot of that happening here on the channel. And thank you everyone for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank everyone.
And like I said, you can find JR at Geek Chat 1. The link to his Facebook page is in the description of this video. I'm there a lot chatting with members of the community. A lot of these people that are in the live chat are there. And we will see you all in the next video. JR, sign us out.
Hype and love, everybody.
Hype and love.